Okay. You got a Pygmalion. And, sorry, we're going to get going in 2 seconds here. I want to make sure that I can see any questions that come up. Let's see. Just testing. Okay. Today, I've got a few fun things. And, sorry, we're going to get going in 2 seconds here. I'm honestly not sure if the stream would start because let's see Twitch, but you know there's an Amazon version. Today got a few fun, you know, stuff. We're gonna get going in 2 seconds. Gotta ignore Amazon. I'm honestly not sure if let's see the stream would start because let's see Twitch, but you know there's an Amazon version. Today got a few fun, you know, this stuff. We're gonna get going in 2 seconds. Gotta ignore Amazon. I'm honestly not sure if let's see the stream would start. There we go. Sorry, we're just getting going. I want to make sure to bring up on my phone, because the computer's at the other end of the room. I want to make sure that I can see any questions that come up. So, read the fucking manual is a new thing I want to do. And most of it is actually going to be things that I'm not necessarily an expert in. It's just stuff I want to try. But I do work, or I worked as a repair agent. I'm in technical support on the same team now. And today I wanted to talk about soldering. And I've got this cool little radio kit so you can make your own radio as practice. And that's what we're doing today. We'll mute this. Okay, there we go. And I can see any questions if they come up. And let's see. Gonna get this just over there. Okay. And if it's too loud, if the microphone's in a bad position or something, just let me know. We've got some basic equipment here. Now, you don't need all of these things to solder. You don't need this stuff to solder. You know what you need to solder? You need a soldering tip. Oh, so I break everything. 'Cause I'm clumsy. No, you need a soldering iron. You don't even need this. You need stuff to solder. And you need the actual solder wire. Now, some stuff this is rosin core solder. So there is stuff inside of this. There's the metal that's actually going to conduct electricity, but there's also rosin inside of this that helps with the melting. Now, in the past, you used to have to add a little bit of flux, add a little bit of the metal, and then you've also got your heat applied so that they merge well, because you know what happens when you melt metal is that it has impurities, or you hit certain temperatures and bits of it flake off, or it gets brittle. If you do things over and over and over again with metal, where you're heating it up and cooling it down, you're going to damage it. You're not going to get a good, you could say, weld or solder. When you're soldering, they call that sort of stuff cold solder, is if it hasn't fully melted, if its structure didn't form properly to let the electricity pass. Now, none of that is 100% necessary to know about this. You want to know what you can do? You can just try shit with electricity. You can just try things, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, you can remelt it. But starting off hobby stuff, you can really do whatever you want. Now, before we get into all of these little parts, let's also pull up, 1 second, just a couple of things. I want to make sure, let's see, we've got this, we've got this, we've got this, we've got our bits, we've got this. We are missing something. what am I missing? I was going to talk about something. There goes my brain, but it doesn't matter. We'll just jump in. So with electricity, well, not just with electricity, but with a circuit, there are three basic things you've got to learn about. And basically you've got positive, negative, and ground. And these are things that you will have heard about before. But for example, this switch, it has 3 connections on it, and one is going to be positive, one is going to be negative, one is going to be ground. Ground is kind of related to this. This is our anti-static bracelet. You don't actually need this, but if you're doing expensive work with, say, building your own computer or working with very delicate parts, like the parts in this kit, they definitely will be sensitive to electrical shock and static and things like that, but not as delicate as some parts. You can be kind of rough with some things, not that you should purposefully be rough with some things, but ground, that's obviously if your negative and your positive aren't hooked up correctly, rather than you getting shocked or these items getting shocked, electricity likes to go to ground, just like with lightning hitting the ground or things, although that's not exactly true, but that's what we hear. I mean, obviously with lightning, you've got positive or negative particles in the air and in the ground, and that power is drawn to ground, essentially. So what you do is you have a place that you can connect your ground to. I've got a little wire down here, but basically that's what you do, is you connect this to your ground cable, put this on your wrist, and it helps. You want to make it tight because this is conductive. It's going to conduct the electricity a little bit if there are any shocks. And I am a staticky person. I am a very staticky person. So this might be more important for me than it is for some people. But basically, draw this up tight. I've got this. I'll connect this in a minute. This is a really old multimeter I have. I don't have a newer multimeter right now. I lost my good one. Let me see if I missed any questions so far. Oh no, you don't need to apologize. I haven't sent out a tweet yet because the ADHD is so bad right now. I cannot focus on one task properly. And so that's why I'm doing this. The audio editing on one of my other projects is going poorly because my brain is not doing well. So I'll say live with new series. Read the fucking manual. Soldering edition. And obviously I'm doing this here. I've been doing a lot of Twitch streaming more lately, but we don't cross picket lines, yo. Nuh-uh. Not at all. There we go. Okay. But as you can see, this multimeter, it's still serviceable. For more delicate things, you're going to want to actually get a good one. But I thought this cool retro one, my friend's dad gave this to me, Scott Thornton. Anna's dad had this and gave it to me, and it still does work. The funny thing about it is I did have to kind of open it up and tidy it up. So just more background, I've worked in I've worked in repair with my current company previously. I did that for about 1.5 years, and I still love it, but I took kind of a wage increase and moved into technical support at the time, and it's good to have on a resume that you've worked with the same company in other positions, but that's unrelated. To get back to this, if you've never worked with a multimeter before, they're actually not that hard. You just read the manual, which is what the series is all about. Now, even this little guy that's from like the 70s comes with a basic manual. And honestly, it's not that bad. It's 2 pages. And anyone can do that. Anyone can with the age of the internet these days, you're unfamiliar with something. Well, fucking look it up. Read the fucking manual and do it. Part of what kind of inspired this idea for the new series, RTFM, in my head was a few years ago, I heard about the series Canada's Worst Handyman. And I highly suggest you go watch it. You'll get some familiarity with hand tools and power tools just by watching, and you'll learn how to look up things properly and what's dangerous and what's not. But like in here, you can test your circuits. You can test the resistance of things. And so a multimeter, not necessary for the average hobbyist. If you're serious about going into a hobby where you're going to be soldering or building your own like computers, your own electrical circuits, or you just want to play with that stuff, I freaking grab a cheap multimeter. And then this isn't the fanciest soldering gun. In fact, the tip is a little loose in it right now and a little dirty. And there are ways that you can clean up things like this, having like a wire mesh brush and things like that. I don't have all of the fancy stuff from work. That's okay. We don't need to be fancy. This is designed to be something anyone at home can do. So, multimeter, you've got your positive, you've got your negative. In some circuits, if you're doing electrical circuit in a house, black is positive, white is negative, I believe, and then ground is a separate copper cable. Now, it's different with a lot of other things. In a lot of circuitry that's internal to it, if you just popped open, random little, like, you could pop open a cheap pair of little, not intercoms, walkie-talkies, and you'll probably see at least a few wires. But you've got your positive and you've got your negative. Oh, yeah, I'll explain. So the series is just to encourage people to get into stuff that they're scared of getting into because they don't know anything about it. That's kind of the idea behind it. Today, I'm just going to do the basics of soldering and a little bit of electrical. And this is a neat little kit. This little kit, you've got this board here, and it shows you exactly where each of the components that come with the kit go. And then you've got where you solder on the back, you've got your contact points that are this exposed copper. And you'll see circuit boards are printed like this still, and you can kind of see the lines underneath. You can trace those and things like that. This is just to encourage people to get into hobby stuff, just do fun stuff, type thing. And since I've professionally done this, I thought this was an idea. This series, Read the Fucking Manual, was something I had a fun idea for ages ago, and I'd only done hobbyist soldering back then, and then I got into the field, so I thought I might as well start with something that I got more experience in. Safety on soldering, your main thing is you're gonna have heat, and I mean, there's not going to be a whole lot of terrible, like the electricity that you're working with here is not going to be extreme, it's not going to be dangerous. I suppose it's possible to shock yourself, but I haven't before. Yeah, so that's kind of what this is about. I know that's confusing, and I know that's different. And then we've got, it's been a while, but Pygmalion is the new dog, and she was adopted a month ago, and so we're just showing her off. Yeah, exactly. Like, soldering is not as scary as it seems. It's more just, I thought this would be a fun series in terms of, oh, there's that YouTuber. I haven't watched a bunch of his stuff. I looked up one of his things to learn how to do it. But there's a YouTuber who does videos like things your dad should have taught you or something like that. And so, yeah, this isn't going to be crazy out there or anything like that. This is definitely to get into the basics. But I thought it would be important to at least touch on the basics of electricity. And if you do get serious, maybe look for cheap things that you can pick up. Let's see, before I plug this in and get this going, This kit doesn't come with a ton of instructions. It comes with essentially some nice pictures that you can follow very specifically on, okay, so here's your jumpers, here's your connections. You've got all of your chips. These are little ICs. They will have be programmed already. Some of them might have really basic functions. Some of them might have more complicated functions, especially since in my current work we do work with radios, and so you'll have a few little things in here. We've got, let's see, let's put all of the bits. I know what I was gonna grab. I have here we go. Let's see, this to put the bits in so they don't get lost. That's what. The main parts for anyone, let's see, if you've done hobbyist soldering stuff, you definitely already know a little bit more than what I'm going to talk about. But just to go into it, some of these basic components on circuit boards, you've got your capacitors, you've got resistors, and the capacitor is going to basically help you put out the right voltage, but it's holding and storing energy in here. Whereas a resistor, it's going to be made of a material that resists at a certain amount, and this is how these are just things. You're affecting two things on a circuit board. I'm definitely going to full on make this little radio kit all the way. I'm definitely explaining this bit by bit. Some of this series, RTFM, as I go, it might, in the future, I might do activities that I'm less familiar with, and so it might be multi-part, but it just depends. I'll try to pick things that can be done in a session and have all of the things, but I'd show people, this is how you research it, this is how you look it up. I don't know how to do this, but we're going to figure it out is kind of the idea, but this one I know how to do, and I'm trying to walk people through the basics so that they don't really need to go further on their own. But the point of this isn't that they'd have to copy exactly what I'm doing. I want to give enough advice that if you picked up another random soldering hobby kit, that you could do it too. And like I said, the basics that really all someone needs is technically a soldering iron. It's nice to have the wire mesh brush to clean your tip and solder, but you can do it with literally just your wire and this and your parts too. And so for safety, one thing that I might recommend for some people is having an anti-static mat. I don't have one of those here at home, unfortunately. I'm not as worried about this particular project, but if I were, say, showing people how to build their own computer or something like that, I would definitely have one. With the working from home, I couldn't borrow stuff from work easily, but that's okay. We'll just jump into this. So I'm just going to organize some of my parts, and I've got, most of these should be the same type thing, because this is so basic. A lot of it should be the same, but on a circuit board diagram, because they'll list the parts and things like this. This full-on outlines each part and has what it's named. It doesn't say the voltage or anything on here, but that's okay. That's what our instructions are for. Our instructions have things about this, like this. This does have important environmental information as well. This is more important for the European Union. America doesn't care about some things. In our instructions, it very specifically says which resistors are R1, R2, R3 on a diagram. Now, you'll already know this, Peyton, but on a circuit board diagram, if you're reading it, the piece of paper, the map for it, it might list the voltages with it as well, or they might have a little key where R for resistor, so like R10 and 15 and 22 will all be the same voltage, and they'll just be lists of each of the parts, the capacitors, the resistors, the ICs, the transistors, everything. On here, they kind of have a key on here as well, and they keep it pretty simple. No, this is, you've got it exactly right. This is read the fucking manual, and this is just the first time I'm trying this. I want to branch into other things. I'll kind of have, I also had a suggestion to do two versions of, not two versions of the same activity, but I could do read the fucking manual and don't read the fucking manual, and DRTF, or DRTFM would be essentially where I try to muddle through something and make it a little more comical, but I want to do that on less dangerous things. Let's not be comical with setting stuff on fire, you know what I mean? Although, I mean, maybe. I have a kit that would be perfect for that. We'll talk about that later. It's a magic kit. There's fire. Okay, later. No, not today. Today we're doing the radio kit. But we're jumping in here, and like I said, it's really easy on this. We've just got to match up each of our pieces, figure out which they are. For people who aren't familiar with soldering, each little resistor has little colored lines on it. And this is kind of a universal, almost universal key. It's essentially the same these days. There have been a few changes, but it's not like they swapped the same colors. So it's not like orange means 4 now, and it used to mean 5. It's more that they just swapped from silver to gray or things like that. I'm so glad. Yeah, and I will read bits of this, but I'll try not to make it too crazy. The nice thing in this little radio kit is they literally list how you can identify these, but you can freaking look up on your smartphone, people, if your instructions get wrecked and you're like, oh geez, I can't read this anymore. But what we have here is we have the brown, black, orange are our 10K ones, our brown, black, red ones are the 1K, and the yellow, purple, green are 4M7s. And then we've got a single 22 ohm one as well, and that's the red, red, black. And so each of these, I'm going to take them off as we do them, or line them up essentially. On here, the first step they go on is they even show in this little radio kit, they show you specifically like a really tiny soldering iron putting on a giant resistor to the board. They want us to start with the resistors, and I think it's because they're tiny, and the reason it's important to put on, like, depending what you do, it's actually better to put little things on after, but they've suggested it first because this is for beginners and you're going to struggle to kind of maneuver in tight spaces. This board is pretty spread out though. You could fit all of this stuff with much smaller parts that are itty bitty, probably on literally something the size of like an inch by an inch, maybe even smaller. But we're not talking about like cutting edge would be you've got spy microphones that are like the size of a pinhead. Obviously that's not something that most people solder by hand. You have microscopes for doing work like that. But let's just jump in. Since this is RTFM, I will go by the manual. But in my everyday work or things like that, when you're doing repair or working with delicate materials, doing the smaller pieces first is dangerous because you might damage them with the heat. You might accidentally unsolder them if it's a board part that sits on the board, not a through hole. So these are through hole components, all of these, but there's a lot of soldering work today that I mean, mostly, like, there's still going to be through-hole stuff for a long time, but if you do want to get into soldering in the future, you're going to need to get used to parts that rest on the board, SMD parts. But this is a good place to start, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. All right, step 1, R1, R2, R3 are all our brown, black, orange, and they've put these all in order. We've got our brown, black, oranges right here. Isn't that nice of them? They put them in order. Oh my goodness, you would, like, this is very generous and all neat and orderly and things like that. It's so nice. Now on here, and I need to start heating up the soldering iron. I want to make sure to arrange things in a way where I'm not going to set anything on fire, because that would be bad. A fire would be bad. Shocking, I know. Now I've got a couple of these parts, and while my soldering irons that I've gotten have come with these little things, I kind of hate them. They're useful to keep around. I'm not going to toss them because I might need them. But I've got these nice little blocks of metal that some people use them in jewelry. They've gotten a little rusty. Don't blame them, blame me. Oh, big stretch. Oh, good girl. Sorry. Let's just jump back in. Because this will slide around, at the least, I want to rest this against something like this. I have done wood burning poorly, but I did that actually for a wood block set for my niece and nephew when they were babies. Okay. So I've started up the soldering iron, and it's going to start heating up fast, which is fine. We've got all kinds of bits. Oh, and I'm going to grab some of my pliers. I'm going to grab one of these cutting because I like it just a little bit neater. Pliers all have a cutting edge, but you know, I should have done a thing where I was talking about useful items to have even if they're not necessary. Useful items, pliers. You definitely will need pliers, at least. I was saying all you need is a soldering iron and your flux. Oh, that's not true. You do need like pliers, at least one plier. We've got more parts here, and we're looking for R1, R2, R3. And R1 and R3 are right next to each other on this board. R2 is all the way over here. And just to remind myself, yes, R1. And the way they wrote it is they did R1 ... R3. They mean R1 through R3, which if you're reading things on a schematic, it's going to say R1, R2, R3 usually, but it does depend who writes the schematic. For the record, RTFM should really be, oh yeah, this is our useful fugly doll. I named him a good name because he looks very grim. Like, he's grimacing. Oh, did I name him Grimot or Freak? I don't remember what I named him. Yeah, he's our buddy. RTFM, I just want to say, it's a good idea before you begin a project to read through every step. And I'm supposed to be setting an example here. I have looked through this, I just didn't look through it today. And so I will probably have to unplug the soldering iron here and there, and that's fine. It does speed up pretty fast, but we're just gonna get ready on this. Okay, gonna put that out of the way. We've got our 3 little guys. Yeah. Oh man. Wood burning is super fun. I highly recommend. That is another thing I should do. I imagine my wood burner is somewhere around here. Now I'm bending these so that they'll go in. One thing you might want to check is your approximate distances here, and this is a lot closer than I expected, but that's fine because I'm just gonna cut. Now, a lot of circuit boards, they want things to rest sometimes off the board. Some things are supposed to be resting on the board even if it's a through hole item. Now, it's better not to stress the ends of your resistors. This is why pliers are a very good thing. Let's get the little set of pliers. And let's not knock the soldering iron over. I'm just going to use this to get the tip. I'm going to bend this nice and gently so that this way I'm protecting my resistor and not stressing it, because these are coated in like ceramics or things like that. Things that might be, you know, delicate a little bit. But, I mean, let's be honest here. And you know what I did? I made my lines too thin. For the beginner, so I can just see the tip of one of mine. The other one is poking out. You're going to want to just go ahead and bend the long versions. If you're a beginner into things, you'll want that length, and you can trim it after it's through. I've done this before. On the rest of them, I'll do it properly as an example, but I was impatient. I was so impatient. Jeez. Yes, room to move so you don't knock stuff off the table. It's because I've got the strap on and I reached over and the cables went there. At work, I'm very used to having a full-on soldering iron that rests inside of something and it does not get knocked out. And so at home, lots of room. Yep, very good idea. And take your time on these things. Like, you can always unplug your soldering iron. You can always get every single one of these ready before you do it. Like, read the fucking manual, get them ahead of time, even line them up in order if you want. As long as you're not going to knock them and mix them up, that's a good thing. I'm gonna get this guy through here. Little tight on my angle. There we go. And what some people will do is they'll stick things through and then they'll bend them. That can put undue stress, again, on the metals and the ceramics. But, I mean, you know what? There's only so much you can do. Sometimes with hobby stuff, sometimes it's designed to be a little bit close is good enough. That should not be our motto. Close is good enough. But, I mean, look where we are. It's 2021. In 2021, close is good enough for me. So I've got my little 3 guys hooked in here. I know where each contact is. You can see them. In the future ones, I'll show them a little bit neater. These 3, I went into automatic mode and I was like, oh cool, I'll just slam this out in 2 seconds. Now, this is another reason why an anti-static mat is a good thing. Oh yeah, the resistor in the board. So mine, I've got them resting right on the board because this is going to be fine. Some of them sometimes resistors are going to need to rest up in the air so that they aren't collecting heat or things like that. I want this flat because I do want to, later, I'd like to do a project where I insert these the little radio. I want to build a case for it or something like that as part of the wood thing. I'll show, there's going to be more too. And then again, we've got our tips hanging out. I don't know if the autofocus is doing a good job. One second. We can borrow Pig's camera. Just for a second. Okay, so borrowing Pig's camera. Come on. Come on, focus. I'm gonna need to get a better camera for small things. That's what I'm learning. We've got our resistors here. If the autofocus will actually focus. There we go. So we've got our resistors in place, and you probably can't hear me super well. And then on the back of the board, you can see the wires hanging out there, but I'm going to show a better example of that. Let's see. Back on the pig. Back on the pig. Everybody needs a piglet, you guys. Everybody. Sweet Pygmalion. Yes. So these are in place. And I want to make sure they're not going to fall out. There we go. And I can see all 6 of the ones that I want to hit. Now this solder is a little thick for this, so I'm going to go with a delicate touch on it. But with things like this, you'll want to have your mesh to clean it with, your mesh brush or your little cleaner. With solder, you want it to flow around things, and it's sometimes good to have flux on hand if it's not going well, but essentially you're going to feed it so that it's touching, and you want it to go through to the other side a little bit even. Man, I would kill for my tiny stuff at work. Spoiled at work. Back to the hobby material. Going back to our roots today. And you're just going to add a little dab of it. This is definitely going to be messier than my work. And you want it to, there are actual requirements if you've got high quality electronics. There are specific requirements according to the percentage it has to be properly soldered around, like 70% or 100%. Let's see, have you ever used glue on yours to hold stuff in place? You know what? I haven't had to at work, but there is heat resistant glue. It's true. It's nice. And I can see on the other side that some of these have flowed through to the other side and some haven't. Flux really helps with that. But it also looks like they don't actually have copper contacts on this side. A lot of boards will have it on both sides. It'll go all the way through. And so realizing that, and I'm just looking inside this board, and it's punched out, so it's not going to flow through easily. And that's just how that is. That's totally fine. Oh, sweet, precious girl. You sneezing? Sweet baby. And I've just unplugged that just for a second so that we can go through the next parts. That's the other thing. So there's heat resistant glues like you were saying. There's also tape that you can do. If you're doing repair and you've got a tight area, but you need to protect all those delicate parts, there's tape where you can put it around and then you're only affecting a tiny area or things like that. We gotta shift the pig camera. Yes, we do. If we can. Oh, there we go. Such a good girl. Man, I wish I had picked up flux too, because I am just all kinds of silly right now. Got clean my tip a little bit. There we go. Now, in our instructions, let's look at the next few ones. Oh, you know what? Step 1 is all of the resistors. So I should just prepare the rest of the resistors. And then after that, they've also got the ceramic capacitors, which, so some of these, I know that for people, you'll know this, Peyton, but for some people who don't know this, so you've got resistors that are through hole, but not every resistor is through hole or looks like this. These are ceramic capacitors, and then this one at the bottom is a diode. And specifically, it's important to note on this part, let's see if we can actually see it up close. I'll do it with the pig camera. On this diode, if it'll focus, this diode, it won't focus. This diode has a little white stripe at one end, and that means it has a polarity. There's a positive and a negative side. On your board, they'll have a line or a dot on the side that is supposed to have that side on it. And so it's pretty clear if you follow your directions. But it's easy to make mistakes. Oh, I know it's a mess. I'm sorry. Yeah, I should have organized everything ahead of time, but this is absolutely what it's like for the hobbyists, and I'm kind of glad it's a mess in a weird way. I definitely, and the part of this is kind of a test too of how this is going to work going forward. Like, oh, so I found out that the cameras aren't autofocusing well, that sort of thing. Let's see, we've got our next ones are 4 and our 5. Just gonna clip these. Oh man, also, at least then there will still be some entertainment in terms of if it's a little bit of a mess, because there is entertainment to be had that way. The important thing, okay, so we've got our 4 and we've got our 5. You can look at these, you can measure them. They've made these really tight. Really, really, really tight, and that's fine. Oh, yeah. And because you have experience with this must look even more chaotic. It's a great mess. Okay, good. Also, part of it is, so one of the regulars on Twitch had the great idea to get the second cam for Pygmalion. And so I can't just not have the second cam on Pygmalion. I'll just have to get a third cam for detail. Okay, I'm going to put in the rest of the resistors, and then I'm going to put in the jumper that's included. They have a jumper. Where's our jumper? Or did they just want... Oh, there's just literally, see, this is something I haven't seen before. I mean, I've used wires as a jumper. Oh, okay. Yeah, so you get stuff. They've got a straight up wire on here that I didn't notice as a jumper. Now, I've used a lot of wires for jumpers, specifically in repair, but a full-on, like, that's just kind of interesting that they've just used that straight up for the jumper. Okay, R6 is gonna be our yellow, purple, green. R6. Hey, you can't just, oh, she's so peaceful. Also, can you tell she's gotten used to the chaos? And we've got R6 right next to R5. Yeah, literally, it's just the same wire as the resistor wires. Got these. Now, some people, I don't know if you know this, but some people will say that you can trim these wires after you solder, and you absolutely can. But if you're doing stuff professionally or you're working with delicate stuff, that's a bad thing because you're putting stress on the metal. You're fracturing it in microscopic ways. And so, I mean, if you can, just go by one or use glue like you were saying, and that's how you do it. Then we've got our 7 is our last one, obviously. Let's see, where's our jumper going to go? Because that's funky. Oh, J1. Okay. And everything has a place. Everything in its place. Here we go. Oh, man. Okay. There's our last jumper, our 7. Then I'll find J1. The weird jumper. There's going to be you know what? There's going to be a ton of stuff to solder. No, you know what? That's good. The fewer times we turn on the soldering iron, the fewer times we have a fire risk. And that's the truth. If you are going to bend things, I think bending outward is better than bending inward, just for the record. Oh, this is just a straight up little radio as far as I know. Let's see. Digitally controlled FM radio. Yes. And it's even going to have a diode with an on. It's has a little LED. Ooh, so fancy. No, you're right. One thing I think I should do for this is in the future, I should set up things where I put a list of here's the kit I'm using, here's the stuff in it, here are my tools that I'll be using today. And I'll add something like that in the description later for sure. And then all of these, it hurts my soul, but I'm just going to bend these because I'm a bad person. Even though I do as I say, not as I do. This should not be the example I'm setting, but look where we are. Okay, and our jumper. Which is very interesting. I would much prefer to have a jumper that is insulated like a wire, but that's because a lot of circuit boards are going to have a variety of different contacts. And you're not dumb. Yeah, little speaker here. Here's my little holder for things. Yeah, you're not dumb. I didn't say it properly. I just kept saying radio, which could mean a variety of things. But yeah, we've just got a little receiver here, which is cool. I think I'd like to do later things where we mess with transmitters or receivers. Okay, J1. I want to see how long it is. Where did they do this nonsense? Oh, what? Okay, so they just have little holes, but they're not. Oh, nope, those are not them. Ignore me. It's not. There's 4 little holes that you can't see. J1's right here. It's at the bottom of something. So I'm the dumb one. This is why we follow directions. Okay. Just looking at this being measured. This is just such a weird concept to me, but this is somewhat useful for repair to have as practice. So it's interesting that they've put this in a beginner's kit to do a little jumper like this. I mean, I'm only an expert in terms of the equipment I've specifically worked with. Exactly. With no rubber mat, with no anti-static mat, you absolutely, not only can you damage your surface, but you can damage your parts or you know, all kinds of things. I did used to use a ceramic tile when I did the wood burning and things like that. I did have like a straight up floor tile that I could wood burn on things. Okay, so we've got our jumper. Now our ceramic capacitors, they're C1 through C7. And look at that. We've got exactly 7 of them. I'm shocked. But we'll just trim each of these. I love that sound. I really do love this sound. Some ASMR for the weirdos out there who also like this. It's just very snappy. Oh, that'll be my ASMR later. Let's see. All right, C1 through C7. And these guys are everywhere. All over the place. And they're the same one, which is great. So we've got, and I should bend all of these too. Now what I'll do is I'll make an example one. And let's see. See, on this board, they gave us just enough room. They want us to bend these at the ends. That is not good practice, but this is a beginner's kit. But it's making me annoyed because that's not good practice. That's fine. I don't care. Everything is fine. How dare they? How dare they teach people wrong things? Ugh. Get people into bad habits. This was not supposed to be a review on the radio kit. I think the radio kit is great. Oh. There we go. Oh yeah, my boss at my job, you have to keep in mind, he's a really amazing, awesome guy. So don't take what I'm about to say as anything other than a hilarious story. But when I first started working with them, again, I had some experience soldering, just not professional experience. And so I was basically a newbie. My boss, Norm, was very excited for the first time that I'd burned myself on the soldering iron. It literally took more than a month. And when it finally happened, I stabbed the tip of my thumb. And this is the same thumb that when I did sushi for 6 years, I cut the corner off of the thumb twice in 6 years. And both times it happened, it was like in the first 2 years of working as a chef. But geez, is it so embarrassing? I still can't quite feel the tip of this thumb right here. It's just right on the corner. As I almost lose one of our capacitors. But I stabbed it right there, so I didn't even feel it happen really. But I did feel kind of that lingering burning sensation later, just kind of the heat. It was like the heat was transferring over from the burn or something like that. But I full on stabbed that right in there. Do not suggest. This is why we've got the soldering iron off right now. I'm just gonna pop not all of the through hole parts on, but I'm gonna pop all of these on, and then we can talk about the ICs. They've in this kit, they've got plugs for the ICs, so this is what we're soldering to the board, not the ICs themselves. Which means that these are replaceable if they burn out or something like that, which is clever. Not every circuit board kind of does that. Oh. Okay, there we go. And that. We've got C7, C6, C3, C4, there's C5. Okay. It hurts my soul to bend these like this, but I'll stop complaining about that. The last time I don't like doing that. Let's see. We've got our C2 here. I'm trying to start the bends by putting them in the hole so that hopefully it's braced on other sides. But it's not, like, it is what it is. With the teeth and pipe-like thing, what's the shiny metal thing with the teeth? Shiny metal thing with the teeth. Is it by Pig or is it by me? Shiny metal thing. Oh! You mean this guy? You mean this? No, sorry, the delay is extreme. So I'm like, I should actually look at what you can see. I've got helping hands here. These are just cool little, I grabbed that just in case, but we probably won't need it. Probably. Shiny metal thing with the teeth. And pipe-like thing. If it is by Pygmalion, I have no idea. No, it's good. It's good. It's good. I'll wait for the description. Hopefully I answered your question. Oh, the square on the table. Oh, this? The square on the table. Oh! Shiny metal thing with the teeth and pipe-like thing. Square on the table. This guy. This is going to be our, this is most likely the actual receiver or something like that. Let's look at our parts. This is the FM tuner and antenna. Okay, that makes sense. So we've got a little connector here, and that's probably what goes through here. Yes. And it looks like, is this our antenna? This wire is straight up our antenna. And so the teeth and the box, this has our antenna and this has our tuner. And I'm trying to see how they tune that. Straight on solder. Interesting. I mean, it'll go straight on here. But it doesn't look, that doesn't fit there. Interesting. No, yeah, no, it makes sense that you were confused. This looks like a very simplified, similar to a B and C connector, but it doesn't have the locking mechanisms at all. It's interesting. Yeah. I'm trying to see how we'll later be able to actually tune the radio, and it'll probably be one of our diodes. There are a couple of screws, so it might be so old school that you literally turn a screw or something in order to tune it. Most of these diodes, okay, so there are a few buttons and things like that. We've got one LED. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's gonna be interesting. Okay, and then second, our last ceramic one, C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7. So we just need C1, which is right there. Okay. No, you're fine. You have no reason to apologize. I was like looking for something weird in my room because I know I have weird things. It's been brought to my attention I have weird things, and it's true. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nothing's fallen out as far as I can tell. It's got our other resistors. And then we've got this diode. Although we've got a couple more jumpers. Got the first jumper in. I don't see additional jumpers for later, but there might be spare. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, get a drink. I should have grabbed a drink. Oh man. Every time you need a cuppa. Every time. See, that was going to be part of it. I was going to get a cuppa of something. Alright. Let's see. There we go. So this is our diode that has the polarity. We've got our little white striped side. We'll put that in the right spot. Slide that into place. I'm going to leave this one a little off the board because it might need a little bit of a gap. Might be happier that way, we'll just say. Just a little. Just a hair. Okay. Now, yep, diode, cathode end. We've got that in. See, ceramic capacitors. We've got them going down in. And then it's got the IC sockets. And it's saying watch the notch. And that's straight on the instructions. That's not from me saying that, but do. You should watch the notch on these. Because a lot of ICs, they're going to have specific pin outs. Each pin, like this is your data traveling around. And so obviously they're not just going to be reversible. And while you, let's see. So on our actual board here, it shows the notch. Put the notch there. And then, yeah, watch the notch. And we've got for J1, yep, IC1, which is the 14 point, and the other one is the 8 point. Get our notch right in place. And there might even be labels on things. On a lot of PCB boards, it's not necessarily going to have a notch. In fact, on a lot of PCB boards, they might not actually have, oh, and you know what? One of these is bent. One of these little guys is bent. So we're just going to be really delicate about this and line him up with his buddies. There we go. Tweezers here. Yeah, we want all the buddies to go the right way. And one of these little buddies got knocked off course. Basically, all you missed was the exciting point where I put the diode with the polarity into place, and I did not put it in backwards. I know, shocking, right? And then we're starting to put in the IC sockets here, and the instructions are like, watch the notch. And I was just going to explain, on a lot of circuit boards, and on the schematics, it won't necessarily have a notch telling you which way. In fact, you're probably not going to have a socket. What it will have is there will be a little dot by where the first pin is supposed to be. And on these, because the camera's not focusing well, but if you look on the top of your ICs, there is a dot by one of them, and that's gonna be your first pin. I know, it's too exciting. I can't handle it. It's too much for my little body. We've got all our pins, and now we're gonna plug this in. Start that up again. And I'm gonna look ahead on the instructions on the next parts. The next parts, we've got an array resistor, which is really rad. I haven't seen something like this. They've just shrink wrapped a bunch of, there are definitely a bunch of tiny resistors in here, and they'll have taken the wires and connected them, or maybe this actual part itself is built this way. Okay, it's not, it does have a ceramic coating, and so it may have been designed this way, but someone absolutely could have soldered this and then dipped it or something like that. But that guy will be next. And they're showing us in the instructions, there's just an exclamation point. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh man. Yeah, I was just plugging it in. But you'd love in the instructions, after I just talked about the first pin on the ICs that you'll see there, on our array resistor, there is a little dot. And then on the board, there's obviously a dot by where the first pin is. But the instructions don't say, like, match these up. This is your first pin. There's just an exclamation point and 2 little arrows pointing to each of them on the pictures. But I love it. I'm here for it. I love it. Oh, I said a pig. Oh, I said happy pig. And distracted. But yeah, that's what you missed. And so I'm going to go ahead and do everything I shouldn't do. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to solder a bunch of these all at the same time. And then I'm going to trim the ends. It's fine. It's fine. This isn't hospital grade work. This isn't going to be class 1 solder work. And it doesn't need to be. But we will move the instructions because they're flammable. Gonna be a good example one day. There we go. That's 1. That's 2. Flux is definitely a good idea. If anyone out there is thinking about getting into hobby stuff, even if you're doing one little project, I will say that little $15 bottle of flux, it's not necessary, but it sure is satisfying to watch it just help it suck right up all around all of these contacts. This isn't too bad. Yeah, I don't like breaking the rules. It's painful. Get these going. I can definitely tell, oh man, I love my work soldering iron because it's just so tight. It's just so tight. This one's not bad. This is definitely the sort of job this was built for. There we go. A little bit of solder. This one wasn't quite enough. That might be a cold solder joint. Oh, you know what? Through all of this, I don't think I actually mentioned ways to actually tell if something is cold solder. Now, the real problem is, that's a good question depending on what solder you're using. If you're using leaded solder, your soldering point should look real nice and shiny. And if it's not, you did a bad job. But you can always reflow things. If you're using unleaded solder like I am, it's going to look dull no matter what you do, no matter how much flux you use. And so you just want to make sure it melts real nicely before you pull your tip away. It's just the tip. It's all about the tip. Get this nice there. The handy thing, you know what? And I'm doing something really bad too. You probably noticed. Okay, one second. Come on, hug. I've got super long hair. And it was wet, so it was just sticking to the back of my neck. I didn't even have my hair pulled back. Man, I'm the worst example. What a first episode. Oh, what do I like to use? Yeah, the unleaded solder. I do like the unleaded solder, especially since I frequently have pets or things like that. I also have my nieces and nephews. They don't live in the house or anything like that, but I would much rather if you can remove the lead exposure in your life, I highly recommend it. Why not? You know? Like, who needs more exposure to lead? Right? Definitely go with the unleaded. Unless, you know what? Being that my company is pretty strict about that, and that's kind of my company's attitude, keep in mind I have an internal bias there as well. I'm sure that there are uses specifically for leaded solder. There's going to be differences, obviously, in production cost and things like that. But if it's at home, just get the unleaded. You don't need more lead in your life, especially not for a hobby. Oh, you're gonna build your own drone. You're going to build your own radio. You're gonna build your own whatever RC car. You want to take that with a side of lead? Absolutely not. Like, why? Don't do that. Yeah. There we go. We're coming along. Just 3 more contacts, and then we've got the ICs as well. Now, one thing some folks might notice is that there's going to be some heat retained, and so if you move something too quickly, your solder bubble, your little on the contact, it's not going to be solid yet. And if you shift that piece, because you're doing the other end, see, I'm going to reflow a couple of these because the heat isn't going to dissipate as fast as you think. The skin of it might settle, but it's not settled. And so I'm just going to touch these up briefly and go around and make sure I don't have any cold solder before I hit those ICs. Especially, and you can go back and forth on the board so that you don't have too much heat collecting in one area. That's especially good to do if you have a lot of delicate parts. Holding your solder metal with fancy safe tools. Yeah. I mean, I use my fingers for a lot of things, and so I'd rather not get lead all over my fingers. And then it's like what if I start forgetting to wash my hands or something? Like, your hands do absorb more than you think they do as well. Although you're not going to absorb lead through your skin, but oh wait, didn't the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz? No, it was it silver poisoning, or was it? Oh man, I'm just questioning all kinds of things now. But the paint that they made his costume with and that they dressed him up in all the time, it was dangerous. I don't remember whether it was lead or if it was silver, but he did die due to it. Also, keep in mind, like, you paint over your skin and your skin can't breathe, and that's not good for you either. Let's see. Okay, those are looking pretty good. Get these IC pins going as soon as I trim these. Another safety feature that I should have mentioned are goggles. Let's see. Where are my goggles, you ask? On my face, for sure. Totally on my face. Totally on my face. Totally on my face. Now. Especially when you're clipping all of these, that's what made me think of it. Now, it's important for solder. Yeah, Dorothy was abused. Lead-coated oranges. She was abused, and I know that poor woman set on fire. Yep. Yeah, she was burned so horribly. I was reminded to put on my goggles because now it's important to protect yourself from the heat and potential solder bubbling and things like that. but also with wires, when you're trimming them, they're just going to go flying. And I'm angling this downward against the table also because I don't want to send one flying across the room at poor Pygmalion. She doesn't deserve that. She deserves to keep her eyes. Another thing you can do is you can just hold one end of it with your pliers so it doesn't go flying everywhere. Oh, baby. Oh, man. The Wizard of Oz was just, I swear, one of the most dangerous movies ever. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure there's worse. But it just gets worse and worse as the years go by, the more you hear about it. Let's see, there was the snow as well. That was just straight up poison. What was it? Not anthrax, was it? Oh. Yeah, I can't even stand watching the movie now because it's just riddled with pain and despair. It's kind of like The Shining, the original Shining movie, because the director was an absolute monster to the actress who played Wendy as well. Like, literally tormented her just so that she'd be jittery. And it's like, have you ever heard of acting? That's what actors do. They act things without having to genuinely feel them, or they're good at stepping into a place where they feel it. Oh, poor Pygmalion. I just get so intense. My poor dog, she's like, don't worry about her. This is normal for her. She's fine. Don't encourage it. Don't pay attention to it. I'm going to use the smaller ones because these pins are a little bit bittier. This is the chonker thread. Man, you know what would be embarrassing is if at the end of this it didn't work. That'd be great. Oh, Lord. This is leaded solder. I can tell. Too late. Contains lead. It's okay. Oops. That's fine. I'll replace this as soon as I can. Yeah. That's another movie that I don't think I'll be able to watch without just feeling horrible, though, is that original Shining, which is a real shame because, let's see, the male actor, and everyone knows his name. I used to know his name. I'm just terrible with names. Never expect me to remember a name, except for, like, you know what, even friends and family. Do I remember your names? I hope I do. I remember most of your birthdays. Most of them. The rest of you get alarms on my phone. After the first year I realized I didn't know your birthday and your birthday comes up, that's when it goes on my calendar. Let's see. Oh, he played the Joker in one of the early Batman movies. You know who I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. Oh, that smoke, it's not smoking. I mean, there's going to be fumes sometimes. There is. We're pretty well ventilated in here. Don't worry. We're not doing this all day long. This is a short project. And so I'm not worried about that. But people who are more affected by fumes, if you've got like allergies or you've got asthma or things like that, I mean, you could do these like in your garage with the door open, or with the window or your door in your house open for good ventilation. Okay. No, thank you. Yeah, don't be worried about that smoke. Man, I must be so used to just fumes going everywhere. Yeah, that wasn't too much. The leaded solder, that's not lead traveling through the air or anything like that, but that doesn't mean fumes are good for you. Ventilation is a good thing. I will say this. I would much rather breathe fumes from soldering 40 hours a day than do resin improperly once, because man, resin is a hobby stuff. It is dangerous and people just jump into it without even realizing. So I'm taking a look. We do have, it's just a couple of contacts that they look a little messy. It's something I'd fix at work, but if they're solid, yeah. Will the solder melt the metal cube? No. No, this is straight up steel, and this is not going to get up to temperatures like that. Soldering is done at much lower temperatures. Like the highest that my work one goes to is 800 degrees Fahrenheit. This is probably only getting up to like maybe the 600 range, but I doubt it. Possibly. Let's see. As I just hold that tip up to my face, it might even list our specific blah blah blah. Cool burns with water. Nope. Ingestion. I'm not worried about that. Can cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. Contains lead. Do not breathe fumes. May cause dizziness, headaches, irritation, or allergic reaction. But like I said, we're well ventilated here. Yeah, resin is kind of dangerous, but yeah, it's, again, we're not doing a big project. At our workplace, they took ventilation very, very seriously for our workspace. And if we're ever working with something a little more dangerous, we definitely kick it up a notch. Okay, that's looking good so far. So our next hits here. Okay, so we've got the IC sockets in place. The array resistor is going to be fun. That'll be fast. And then we've got our LED, we've got our switch, and then it's got all these little push buttons. Yes, push buttons, the transistor, the voltage regulator, the capacitors, and then it has us put the ICs in. And the last thing we do is we hit up our speaker and then our FM tuner antenna. I say the last thing and then I listed two more things. It's fine. We are plugging along here just great, kids. We've also got, you know what? This doesn't go to this kit. I think I slid this in here. This is something I was experimenting with. Oh, I'm so silly. See, I've got a bunch of random parts in there. I must have just slid this into the kit, but I should know better because these are wires from my breadboard, and so these fit in the sockets for testing just perfectly. Do you think you could mess with resin or wood carving for spoons and stuff? Hell yes. I've been actually, okay, wood carving. Let's just do a brief little preview. Forgive me for getting in the way. And he's a precious girl. Oh Lord! Oh, there is a. It's not you. Holy shit! There is a giant fucking spider. And it might be a recluse. Yes. Huh. Do we... I don't like it. It's by my dog. And I'm not scared of spiders. Okay. We'll get back to wood carving in just a second. I have a spider to catch. Whoa, hate that. Not gonna hurt my dog. long has it been in my room? Hate it. Hate it. Okay, it's just need paper. On my bed. Okay, here we go. Hey, let's do it. Read the manual on catching spiders. It's so big. I know it doesn't look big there, but it's really big. Okay, pig, don't move. Ooh. Oh, it's so big. Oh no. Oh no. He's not my friend. This is... Oh, okay. Now the tricky transfer. Oh, thanks for the licks. Okay. On the desk it goes to handle later. That's a brown recluse. I know because they show up at work sometimes. What a good girl, Pig. She's just hanging out right where she worked, right where she was. Because Pygmalion doesn't care. Pygmalion doesn't care. No, she doesn't. Good girl. Oh. Thanks for that sideline. Oh. Your old German neighbor said she would teach how to carve wood, and a big spider burned down the house. Oh, it's so big for it. Like, I know there are bigger spiders in other places. Okay, so to show off wood carving, I've done just a little bit of wood carving. This is basically just with balsa wood or with really basic things, but like I started off with this little guy here. Aww. It's supposed to be a little axolotl from a little webcomic I was working on. We've got no face. And they're not super detailed or anything, but they are little, just thumb-sized. And then we have Shark Jesus. Yeah, that's right. Because everyone needs a Shark Jesus. He died for our fins. He sacrificed himself for our fins. Oh, is it Pygmalion? You gonna come under here? You gonna come join me? Am I gonna move the camera for you? Yeah, you can sit in your bed. Hey, you can sit in your bed. Good girl. It's a good thing it's unplugged right now. But I should really have you not sit over here while we've got dangerous stuff. For the pets. Come here. Come here, good girl. Yeah, come on. Oh, look. Look. Oh, come on. Come on, up, up. Just wagging your tail. Come on. Good girl. Good girl. Yeah. Yeah. Get up here. Here's your lambkin. Here you go. Get her lambkin. Okay. Sorry for that sideline. Yes, wood carving. I'd love to do some wood carving and spoon carving, and I have some big blocks. Jesus. Yes. Honestly, if you look up Shark Jesus in Google, there's a great image. Okay. Okay, so let's get placing some of these. Electrolytic capacitors. These also have polarity, just like one of our diodes. Let's see. They've got them going in sideways on here, and so this is something where you'd put it through and then maybe hold it and bend it or something like that. But essentially, just like this, go like this. We hold it. We've got the two pins here so that they're protected. This is what I was saying. I don't like bending things right there if I don't have to. But we just bend like that. And on a lot of electrolytic capacitors, it'll even say negative on the polarity that's marked, but it's always going to be negative as far as I know. Me, who is not an electrical engineer. Hey, any electrical engineers out there wanna just tell me I'm wrong? Do it. And I'm just making sure to bend these the right way the first time, so I'm checking on the board which way it wants it to go. We've got the negative and it's got it laying that way. So here we go. Pop this in. Sure, did I skip ahead a few steps? Sure. But it's because I'm putting all of these in together. We've got our negative. Also, another thing for the newbies. Oh, you have school. Hey, don't worry. If you have to go, you can go. Don't worry. The video will be here on YouTube. Hey, one day maybe this will be useful to you. Also, with a lot of like little electrical components, the longer pin is going to be the positive one, generally speaking, unless it's labeled otherwise. But that's very common for our LEDs here. Our little LED. It's gonna go right there. And yep, the cathode. Watch the polarity, it says. There we go. Long side, short side. There we go. We've got this guy. Shark Jesus. Good girl, Pygmalion. Now part of all of this, of all this chaos taking so long is absolutely my fault. Oh, okay. Oh no. Oh yeah, getting anxious about school. Hey, you know, that's one thing to keep in mind here is I mean, maybe I'm showing you something fun that will be applicable one day. Who knows? Maybe. Maybe not. We'll find out. Let's see. We've got our we've got our switch. No switch. And they've got a they've got it on the side. So when I make a container for this radio, what I'll want to do is I'll want to make sure this is really nice and clean here so that you can hit that switch really easily. Lots of nice little parts. And all of the push buttons, okay, it looks like they are all the same, but I'm going to put those on after because we've got all these parts here and I want to make sure they don't fall off, which they will. At least a couple of these will fall off. Okay, here we go. Yeah. It does get harder to do multiple ones. This is what helping hands are useful for too. Or like you were saying, the heat resistant glue. Another thing I can do. No. Anything in particular kind of stressing you out with school lately, or is it just kind of in general school? Because it's all equally valid. You know, I am going to use this to hold those in place. There we go. Plug this back in so it can heat up fast. It does heat up really quickly. Clip this in place. Get these back on, all the safeties. Let's see. Okay. There we go. And you know what? We've already used the leaded and it's going in so much cleaner. I'm just going to keep using the leaded because I don't have flux on me. Yeah, and it's still heating. That'll take a second. That's all good. Oh. We're gonna come over again, Pygmalion. Does that stay away from the spider? We've got a frog dog. I love it when she frog dogs. That is a frog dog. Gets her back legs all out behind her. Precious baby. Okay, in general, but yeah, the test. Oh, so they only warned you about the test one day before? Yeah, not exactly the kindest thing to do. Let's see. As I said, this will go on so much cleaner. There's our tip. Okay. There we go. And soldered all around. And soldered all around. Getting these capacitors nice and neat. Nice and neat. And you just want to add solder slowly. What? That's ridiculous. But why would they? Did they even give a reason for changing it? That's a pretty drastic change. By the way, you're going to have a test next week. Oh no, never mind. It's tomorrow. I just hope it's not someone being intentionally, like, I can't imagine it would generally be someone who's just trying to intentionally mess with you, but I've also seen some I've heard horror stories about some people. There are good and bad people everywhere, is all I'm saying, and I happen to have seen that there are occasionally really terrible teachers. Just like there can be very terrible doctors or parents. $247. Good Lord. No, to change it so much, they better have. Oh man, you're gonna love college though. Like, I'll tell you this. Sometimes you've got open book quizzes or things like that. And I love me a good open book because, you know what? In the real world, sometimes you're going to refer to your reference materials. That's going to happen in real world jobs. You think like engineers and doctors just never look at a book again? Just trim these. Trim this. Trim this. And this. Okay. We've got our switch. Power switch. We've got our LED. Very nice. We've got 3 capacitors, electrolytic capacitors. And then let's get this sassy boy on there. The array resistor. Man. So this is where something like that glue you were talking about would be extraordinarily helpful. Honestly, the glue, you could glue everything in place and then solder it all at once even. But here, another thing you can do is literally just solder a single pin. I'll even dab it a little bit on the tip. Just there. And in welding, they'll do like little spot welds like that, and then you can go over the entire thing I'll hit that one again last so that it gets redone nice and neat and we don't have a cold solder joint that was strained for any reason. Oh, you like programming, but, well, here's the thing. It's only not reliable depending on the company. And it also depends the type of programming you go into. The truth is, keep in mind that computers are always going to be a thing now unless something horrible happens and our sun starts letting off like storms that literally knock out power across the entire earth for decades of a time or things like that. Computers is solid. My father is a computer engineer and software programmer and things like that. He's done a variety of things, and we live in Utah, and they say things like we have a mini Silicon Valley here. I disagree for certain reasons. What we are is we're kind of the India for some Silicon Valley. It's gotten a lot better. Yeah. Programming, oh my goodness, pardon. Programming is always going to be a thing. Now, you can count on that. It's what you've just got to look at is what type of programming. Now, you could follow industries that are always going to be around, the way some people become nurses and doctors, because guess what? There are always going to be people who need medical care. No matter where you go, there are going to be medical jobs unless you go to a really, really tiny town and there's already a town doctor. Something nice about programming is, as the world and as technology has advanced, you could live almost freaking anywhere and do some jobs from home. Programming is one of those. It can be kind of a bitch to get one of those jobs sometimes, and convince them to let you work from home initially. But that it just depends. And after COVID has happened, so many of these industries have realized that they don't, so that companies have gone kind of two ways. They've been forced to admit, oh man, you're right. We are saving a ton of money by having people work from home. And that's a thing now. And then the other way companies are going is, despite saving money and despite higher productivity in most cases, they are turning the other way because they like to micromanage their employees and be able to stare at you at your tiny cubicle. There's middle grounds too, but I mean, keep in mind, there's always going to be satellite internet, and you can apply for jobs all around the world. No. You don't sound like that. I've had a lot of feelings like that myself, where I felt like saying something like that made me sound childish or something. You don't. And you can always, like, maybe you don't have a specific programming in mind, and that's fine. You don't need to have something specific in mind just yet. If you are worried about stability, I'd say go one of two ways. Either specialize in something that is in high demand and will continue to be, well, maybe not high demand, but at least something that will always be present. Or you can go a different way and you can kind of generalize a little bit more and learn a variety of things. Now, that's not to say you can't learn more later. Okay, so they've done an interesting thing here. The transistor and the voltage regulator look the same. Let's see. This should be the regulator from what I know. Oh, okay. There's the markings for what it is. Okay. So the transistor BC547. Yes, I was right. Regulator, transistor. No, so, I mean, you don't have to decide right now to, yeah, give yourself some time. Keep in mind something you might want to try doing is if there is something like a camp that you can go to where you can try doing stuff like that every day, getting out of that honeymoon kind of phase and seeing what it's going to be like day in and day out is helpful for any job, not just programming. Although with you doing some school from home, oh yeah, when you were doing your coding class you had fun. Yes. No, that's a shame. That hurts so much. I'm sorry to hear that. You know, the nice thing about it is there's a lot of the nice thing about coding, even just as a hobby or professionally, is you can do some coding with very little resources. There's a lot of free stuff you can do online. Obviously, not everyone has access to a computer at home. A lot of people do. If you don't, if you've got a library near you, man, I love socialism. I love the libraries. I have people I know who are very anti-socialism. I'm like, it depends on what you're talking about, but let's just be honest here. Libraries are socialist, and I'm very grateful for them. You can do it at your local library, even if it's just web-based. There's so many free sites, and I'm sure you've been exposed to that, but even game stuff, you definitely can do that without having to download anything on a personal computer. But, I mean, like, you're on the internet right now. Unless you're on your phone, and you can still code on your phone, it's just annoying as hell. At least for me. Man, I hate coding on my phone. There are coding games that I don't mind because they'll have little buttons that are short keys for your phrases. Yeah. You know, one thing I'm looking at doing for one of the fun things with... Oh, sorry, baby. Oh, it's okay. Oh, it's okay. Oh, baby, it's okay. Good girl. She's all worried. Hi. It's okay. Good girl. Good girl. It's okay. We're getting close here. Poor Pygmalion. She's like, oh... Scary sounds. You're doing scary things. Oh, and I have this entire row of tactiles. One project I'd like to do that I could do RTFM for is some game building that I want to do with Anna and a friend Andrina. I want to do a dating simulator that's cryptids. Because, you know, there's like a pigeon dating simulator on Steam. You've got Dream Daddy that the Game Grumps put out. And Ross? The Game Grumps and Ross? Man, I could be so wrong. But, I've done like bits of coding. I've done some classes. I definitely want to get into it more. Hey, I'm 30, and if I can say with pride, not with pride. I'll say this with hope. I'd like to be a programmer one day, and I'm 30 years old. I've done some minor programming, but like just a few classes and like a couple of unfinished text adventures. Okay, pull that. So Pygmalion will stop being worried. Who's a good girl? Look at this worried girl. Look at this worried girl. Oh. Oh. She's such a good girl. Yes, she is. She's such a good girl. As I pet her with my unleaded hand. Yeah. Yeah, C# is pretty heavy. I have a little experience with Java, Python, and C. And then I grew up kind of on C in terms of, well, at least exposure to things, because until I was about 22, I had exclusively, at my home computer, used that's the resin. I'd exclusively used open source like Ubuntu, Debian, Ubuntu Studios, just a variety of Linux systems. And I still like it. I'd go back to it. Okay. We're looking good, if a little messier. Unfortunately, I have to admit that the leaded is tidier than the unleaded at home without access to other things. So that's something to keep in mind in terms of maybe some of the pluses and minuses are if you have to do just a bit of soldering and you've just got to grab something and go with a little kit somewhere. Maybe it's the leaded you want to keep, but I mean, you just do what you can. Do what you can. Okay. Yeah, I want to do more Python. I'd like to do more JavaScript. I'll just see where it goes. Okay, we've got the push buttons. We've going all the way from, so step 1 was the resistors, done. Step 2, jumper, done. Ceramic capacitors, done. Diode, done. IC sockets, both done. Array resistor, the LED, the switch, the push buttons, the transistor, the voltage regulator, and the electrolytic capacitors. Now it's telling us to go ahead and pop our ICs in. Oh man, yes. Man, slow motion stuff is just so wicked cool. That's why Slow-Mo Bros is doing the natural world as it is fascinating. And that's gonna sound like I don't know, maybe the way I'm saying that sounds weird, but like I love nature documentaries. I love the math of the universe in terms of, like, for example, you've got, is it the way plants put out their leaves in that spiral pattern that literally has a mathematical, oh, what is it called? I should ask Google. But like the way, watching things being sanded and things, it's watching how air moves and particles travel. The interesting thing about that is, while it's randomized sort of, there's an order to it as well. I don't know. No. I mean, maybe there's not. I don't know. Everything looks lovely. At the very least, sanding while the particles flying off is random. The fact that you're sanding something to a specific degree or something like that, I don't know. Okay, we've got our ICs popped in. Now we've got our speaker. Watch the polarity! Exclamation point. And it says to solder 2 wires. How long will I be up? I mean, it's not 10 yet. I'm definitely finishing this. I mean, we're on step 14 out of 16, and then we'll test it and have some fun. It said attach the antenna. Is the antenna just this wire? Yeah, solder the wire. Interesting. But it also said to solder 2 wires here. So I assume we just don't need much jumper space. Or is it talking about our 2 spare wires here? I'll be up at least for another hour, but we'll see how long this takes. This might not take another hour unless I'm extraordinarily slow. This also shouldn't be in there, should it? No, I don't think so. I just have random parts in here. Huh. Oh yeah, that's right. It's midnight for you. Well, again, this, like, I'm just going to go through the steps here, and so it'll be back tomorrow. We've got some nice little Pygmalion and stuff like that. We'll see how good I am at talking nonsense. Yeah. Yeah, we always forget that we're off each other's time zones so much. Let's see. And we've got here, we've got our negative and our positive. What I'm going to do, I'm going to feed this through. I'm going to grab this. Feed this through. Grab it with my tweezers. See, I try to start by 8 p.m. my time. I should really, I'd been trying to think of specifically what I'd do if I was being more specific about saying like what time I start things. But it's like it always comes down to like 8 p.m. by the time I get Pygmalion exercised. Okay. And that's already 10 for you. Let's see. Trim that. Get this here. Trim that. I don't like these being exposed because they could contact something else. I don't love that. Oh, I'm out in Utah. You know. It's a nice place for some folks. It's not a bad place. The problem with Utah is that you never know if someone's a nice person or a crazy person. Actually, no. I can't, it's so hard not to generalize, and so I'll say it is a nice place, and there are nice people, but I heard someone say this, and it was the best way I've ever heard it described. Someone said, East Coast people are kind, but not nice. West Coast people are nice, but not kind. And it's true. It's very true. Let's see. I think we're supposed to get this locked. Okay, so getting the bolts. The screws and the spacers go in the front. Screws and spacers. No, I figured out it was U-salt. It took me a little while, but I figured it out after we'd been talking for a little bit. Yeah, I only came on here instead of Twitch because of the whole what's it called? I suck at remembering what things are called. Let's see, and the lock washer. Okay, so the way these go in, got our spacer. Man, that must have been weird for you because I was calling you Peyton. You're like, wow, how'd you know my name? No. Okay, so the spacer, the clamp, the way they do it, it doesn't, okay. So like this, and then I hook it over the edge of the speaker. somehow. It's like, what if I have the wrong speaker here? Oh, I have the wrong speaker here. Oh, you're gonna laugh. I have another speaker in here. I just didn't realize. No? Yes? Which one? See, this one looks old. I don't know which one. Let's see. Do I have any other random parts in here? I just have random speakers, yo. No, this is just how the world is now. It's just, so this isn't quite fitting. And so I'm sitting here thinking that this is the wrong speaker, but this is so shiny and new and the other one is dirty. Okay, so looking at the company, this is made by HQ Power, and this is the Velman mini kit, but that doesn't mean anything because they're not going to manufacture all of these things. They look very much the same on the back. M3 nut. Yeah. Crazy. Okay. No. Okay, we'll do this. We'll just see, this looks like it fits perfectly in the bounds, but getting this to actually fit on here is not. It's like it wants the spacer, but screw, spacer, spacer. Okay, no, the spacer does go on this side. Okay. See, I knew there was something funky happening here. The picture, see, I'm following pictures, following the manual, and even with pictures, it's like very much like putting Legos together. They're very clear on it, and yet I still was making a mistake. It's possible. This is why we read things multiple times. Okay, spacer, washer. Oh, I know. It's painful. I need to hurry, but also not like hurry it so much that I try to turn it on and then it fails. Okay, there's those. And this, go over like this. Here we go. See, and the weird part is they've got 4 nuts though. Okay, there's going to be more later. It's the battery holder for later. You know what would be tragic is if I've got the wrong type of battery. No, it should be fine. Did I even get the right type of battery? Oh my gosh. That would be a great comedy of errors though. RTFM, yo! But it doesn't actually say. It's just got battery holder and then the little battery contacts, which battery contacts? Where are you? Well, I've got this that I can always hook up to it, and that fits double A's. Chaos. Little motor. Get the plastic away from that. Yeah, worst case scenario if the battery contacts don't work. I've got this covered. A positive, negative. It'll be good. Okay, so one side of the speaker. Now, we've got the other screw. Pop in right there. Then we've got our spacer. We've got our washer. We've got our clamp to hold it in place. We've got a nut or 5. There we go. I'll use these pliers to just tighten these up a little bit. It's interesting because they've only got the 2 screws to hold this, and so it's a little loose. Which is why we've got to tighten this up nicely. You know how we do, how do we know people are people? How do you know that I'm real, even though computers don't collect dog wool? See, you'll never know. You'll never know for sure. Deep fakes are too good these days. I could be an experiment that's designed to be just so like, that's all about that test about trying to tell if something is a human or a robot. I could be the first thing fooling all of you. Because how could I not be human? Look how imperfect I am. Let's see. This guy's kind of long. I just need one of my little... Yeah. Where's your brother? There we go. This screwdriver. This is something helping hands would be useful for, sort of. I've always wished I had 4 hands. I mean, 4 arms, I should say, not just 4 hands. If I had 2 arms and 4 hands, I mean, I could probably brace things and make it work, but it wouldn't be pretty. That one's too big. Click on all of the pictures that have stop signs in them. Oh my goodness. It's so random. You're never going to believe this. But none of the pictures had stop signs in them. None of them. Now what? Let's see. Tighten this up. See, I don't love this because it doesn't tighten more than this, and this isn't in place. Oh, I'm annoyed for a number of reasons, but you know what we're gonna do to cheat just for a little bit? I've got some nice masking tape here, and I'm going to fix this. This will be at the time that I make the container for it, but I'll just pop this guy down on this side. The word I see is some squiggly letters and numbers, and it's 42 A G Z and a 2. And yeah, I mean, you'll never know. You'll never know. That's the other thing is, unless you have an actual CAPTCHA to check the other side, You'll never know if I'm lying or not. Okay. There's this guy. Popped out of there. That's fair. You were wiggling around a lot. How do you like my very tidy masking tape? It's all the rage. There we go. There we go. Okay. We'll plug this back in because the next few things... Oh, you know what? Is it because of the masking tape that you think I'm human now? Interesting. Positive, negative. See that battery terminal, battery holder. Black, red. Interesting. It's just... It's just weird that that part is missing because I just got this. See, that's how you know that I'm real. Because of how utterly chaotic this entire thing was. Speaker. How messed up it was. Like I said, I've got contacts. I don't understand this battery holder though. It's kind of odd. The masking tape is really defining everything right now. You know what? I'm okay if we define myself via masking tape. I'm okay with that. Okay. Now I should see, before we do the battery holder, the snap goes in. Let's see, this is going to go here. Interesting. M3 bolt. Yeah. And that's in there. See, this is kind of odd. You see what I mean? Getting that bolt into place. It's gonna be tricky. Because the way the snap is, my finger doesn't even fit in here. Hootenanny! I love that name, or that word, I should say. Hootenanny. Okay, and there we go. Yeah, look at all this nonsense. Hootenanny. It's gotten pretty far. Yeah, exactly. And so it's like you want to see the end. Straight up torture. Okay. So this is our battery holder. And maybe I'm a little too young to recognize how exactly that's supposed to clip into place. Or either that or it's expecting a 9-volt battery, and we're not even going to be able to turn this on today. If so, I don't think I have a 9-volt battery because I used it up. Work. That would be a great end to this, is that, but the thing is I can try. The voltage would be a lot lower, but we could try to turn it on with the double A's. Okay. The red, the black. I'm just going to connect this. Make sure that's looking good and not worn. We're gonna go with the double A's and just see what happens. Oh, I survive on 5 hours of sleep constantly. You can survive. Will you thrive? I mean, it depends on what kind of chaos you are. So yes, it's possible. It's possible. Okay, so we've got our negative and our positive. Positive is on the lower. We've got to solder the speaker and the power wires. And we've got our antenna, but this will be the last soldering session when I do it. So we've got those, we've got this big boy. So this is the part that's interesting to me because it looks like they want us to... Did they not punch out my holes? Oh, I see. I mean, they made tiny holes for this. It doesn't fit. And there aren't any holes on these. Okay. So solder side. We're on the solder side. Okay, so this does go on the solder side. This is the interesting part. So some parts usually go on the face of the board. This one's specified to go on the solder side, which is this side. But they don't actually have holes here that match our antenna. Can a person say, don't fry the circuit? No, if it's underpowered, it'll probably turn on, but it'll either be intermittent or it might not turn on all the way. It won't fry anything. With voltage and current, you can be under voltage. You're not going to damage anything as far as I know. With current, you can go over on current. So if you look at your phone or... Oh, okay, so for example, a regular battery like this. See, I got batteries. I did prepare. I just got the wrong battery. Read the manual. Read the manual. It's in the title of the show. Read the fucking manual. Anyway, back on track. One of these is usually 1.2 volts from what I remember. Let's see. Oh, wait, it's alkaline. Oh, 1.5 volts. Some batteries are more like 3 or things like that. So if it's expecting 9 volts, but it only gets 3 volts between these two, or 1.5, but just the additional current or things like that, it'll be fine. It just won't power the way it's supposed to. But the current on this, so we've got 1.5 volts, but the current of it is, well, let's grab our multimeter with its little banana inputs. It's bananas. And don't worry, the soldering iron is not on right now. Okay. So I just make sure it's in the right setting. Volts, we want to go way down. Milliamps, DC, AC. Let's move that. 0 ohms, adjust. 2 volts. Okay, what we want to measure current. So we're measuring the amps. And I'm going to go down to the 2.5 milliamps. Let's see. Don't fry the circuit. Okay, so here's our, if we're doing DC, okay. So positive. unless we want to do, no, DC, no, we want to do this. Okay, positive to positive, negative to negative. Okay, so we're on 2, lowest setting. Oh no, it's stuck again. Okay, so on my multimeter, the one downside is it sticks at one point. This is why I need to buy a new multimeter here. Oh. Hey Google, how much current does the average AA battery have? 300 milliamps, or 2 to 3 amperages. Yeah, okay, so 1.2 to 1.5 volts, and then, yeah, you get 2 to 4 watts. Okay, watts per hour. Okay, per cell. Yeah, that makes sense. See, we should just do that. That's what Google is for checking things. But batteries there. So this guy, it's just interesting because there aren't any holes on this. So soldering this is going to be interesting. I don't know if they want us to bend it. I don't think they do. Okay. Okay. Well, we will just do our best to connect that. And we're going to plug the soldering iron in. Masking tape up there. Oh, Pygmalion's on the couch. While that heats, I'll just shift. She looks so small. Try to get the good view of her. There we go. Oh. Oh no. Oh no. Oh, Salt. Your eyes, your poor eyes. We're almost there. We are literally so close. I've got all of these lined up. The hardest part to solder is going to be this guy, and we'll do that last. See, this is why the Fugly doll, like, Pygmalion is just half the channel. The mascot is the Fugly doll, because late night, and that's what any normal person looks like when it gets too late. There's that. That's for our batteries. The speaker connections. Number 1 out of 4 for the speakers. Number 2 out of 4. Oh yes, of course I knew. Number 3 out of 4 is done. Just let that sit for a second. There we go. Number 4 out of 4 on the speakers. And then we've got our big boy and attaching the antenna. Yay, fumes! Okay. Now what I'll do is I'll attach the 4 big corners and then I'll poke in. Hopefully my soldering tip is thin enough to get underneath there. Okay, let's make sure those are connecting. Okay, not quite. And okay, that's connected. That's connected. Okay, there's a bunch of little pins here, and these are going to be the tricky parts. But I think we'll be okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to angle it so I can see it a little easier. At least I got the soldering iron that has the light on it. And we're touching one of the other contacts, which is not okay. Shocker. We've got enough solder there to spread, which is fine. What you can do is you can kind of run the solder along. When you do more delicate chips, it's actually really easy to put them down as you run with the solder without bridging them. You can learn how to do that pretty easily. And sometimes when you got a bridge between two that shouldn't have a bridge, you can reflow it and just kind of shift the metal as a liquid around. Okay, just gonna apply this here. Hopefully that flows how we need it. No bridges. The thing you have to be careful about is flux can cause the circuit. Let's see, okay. That's there, positive, negative. Oh, and we've got our antenna. So what we've got to do for this, according to the manual, we just solder it to the center. Yes, of the tuner. Okay. Antenna. Got to strip this a little bit. I'm going to be careful when doing this, not to damage the wire. With high quality solder work for certain things, you can only sever something like 1 or 2 of your wires or damage them even when you've got a set like this. Okay, and these are all just going to go right inside of that, so I'm going to trim them just a little bit. And it's also actually not good to twist them too much. People will do that with their cables that they're soldering, and it's actually a bad idea. Okay, so I've got just a hint of that poking out. Now what I can actually do is I can pre-tin this. If you hit a point and add a little bit of solder to it, it'd be nice if I had flux for this especially, because you've got a bunch of little wires. But, que sera, sera. I know you're so dead. We are so close. Okay. Got the wire in there. I've got a little bit of it exposed. I wish I had a smaller tip, but I don't. It's okay. This is what it is. Sorry, I just need this. I need to get as much of the tip visible as I can. Okay. A little more. Okay. Now that's heated. We're unplugging. Put that there so that can sit and cool as safely as possible. Okay. Okay. Here we go. Got an antenna. We've got all these little buttons. 1, 2, 3, 4. Forward. Oh, sound up, sound down. The power. If I look at this. Okay. Let's stretch out our tiny little... Oh, and then my phone's about to die too. Hilarious. We'll stretch out our antenna and we will just loop it around that. Put in some batteries. Oh no. See, there's no light there. Oh no! Guess what? We need the 9-volt battery. Huh? Oh no! See, I said this is what was going to happen. Oh no. Let's see. Do I really not have a 9-volt battery? Oh, I really don't think I do. Let's see. Oh no, Salt. I don't have a 9-volt battery. I could run to the store. It's across the street. Yeah, I know, right? I foresaw this and still hilarious. I could, you know what? One second. All hope is not lost. I've got one idea. I've got a power supply that is adjustable. And there is a 9-volt setting. got the 9 volts. 9 volts. So there's a positive and there's a negative here. Let's hope my idea is great. Oh, it is. And very safe. Wink. No, it is. Okay, I've got these lovely contacts. Let's get the zip tie on this undone. It's this. My ideas are always great. It involves more masking tape. Get these out of here. Okay. The real thing here is I'm not sure which of these two is positive and negative. They've just got tip marked on one of them. The tape returns. That's right. Well, it's just to hold things in place so that all hell doesn't break loose. Okay, this is what we'll do. A little bit of soldering. You're gonna stroke and die. Oh no. Yeah, let's get these useless batteries out of here. Let's see, get the goggles. So I've got two ways to do this, and I think the simplest thing is not to use the actual tip, but for me just to touch these inside of it. But first we got to get these useless battery contacts off of here. Useless. So read the fucking manual has turned into do anything to make it work. Did we notice? I don't know when that happened, but I think it was earlier than expected. Okay. It's just taking a minute to warm up. There we go. Sometimes old solder doesn't like to reflow and it'll sound backwards, but you should add more solder. You can get a solder sucker to remove it excess, or you can use the copper tape. Okay, there's that. When did this turn into do anything to make it work? I'm gonna need to find the time stamp specifically. Okay, we've got our positive, we've got our negative. we are not soldering anymore. Okay, now this is the part where I'm going to use some pliers. That 9 volts is that scary. Okay. Got it off. Now we're going to plug this in. Oh, no, if we do the tape, I think I'll do it before plugging it in. And I think I will use the masking tape, actually. I might have this backwards. See, and my multimeter doesn't read that. Okay. And let's make sure. Okay, yes, yes. Everything is good. Okay. Multimeter. Whew. I really want to test with the multimeter, but it won't read if it's negative anyway. Alternating current, positive. Go over to the 10 volts, negative. Okay. I really wish it listed. Okay, goggles back on. So many bad things. Yeah, don't cry. Okay. I think I've got it. But I'm going to connect these with this unplugged first, because if something blows, this is what we do. Masking tape, because I want to hold those firm. I really wish it listed on these which one was the positive and which was the negative. Oh, look. They do have a positive and negative on them, but it's literally right between the two pins. Okay, I think the bigger one is negative, yeah. Okay, good. Good, good, good. Okay, there's that. There's this. We're on 9 volts. I'm gonna plug it in. And power. No. Oh no. It still didn't go. Okay, let's try it the other way. Put positive in the lower one. Woo! We found it! Okay, so the pins were mislabeled. Yes. Okay. We have power. Oh. Do you hear it? Yeah. So much country. Yay, it works. Happy ending. And this is perfectly safe. I'm grounded anyway. Who needs a 9-volt battery, Salt? Who needs a 9-volt battery? This is my jam. Yep. You get some nice sleep peacefully. And it's a happy ending, Salt. Together, right now, over me. Unfortunately, music on YouTube. Oh, music on YouTube is complicated. Salt, thank you so much for joining for this the first, especially since you were the one to suggest. You were the one. This was your idea. Read the fucking manual was my idea. Don't read the fucking manual is your idea. And this was a beautiful amalgamation of both. Yeah, like, you start with junk, supposedly, and the great thing is you can make stuff like this by harvesting bits. Oh, man. Some of the don't read the fucking manual stuff should be, like, I have bunches of cogs and things like that. Some of the don't read the fucking manual should be when we just cobble stuff. Unfortunately, I only just remembered at the end of this that YouTube will throw a fit if I've got certain music playing. And so I can't play it forever, but we'll come back to this and I will create a little case for this and get a proper 9-volt battery for it, I guess. Or I'll go get a power supply and wire it. I don't know. Maybe both. I think, oh, and I did say like an hour ago we'd be here for, like, about 50 minutes ago I said we'd be here for another hour or so. But aside from the mess, I think it's been a good night. Oh, and little Pygmalion. Let's get her a treat and get a close up with her real fast. Pig, do you want to come here? It shall be called Read the Fucking Manual, but only halfway and then go wild. Yeah. You want to come here? Come here. Treat. Come here. Oh, yes, come here. Oh, good girl. Oh, sleepy girl. So we'll say good night, huh? Will we say good night? Okay, down. Oh, good girl. Yes. Good girl. Oh, yes, biscuit for the good girl. Sleep for the Salt and biscuit for the good girl. Oh, want more? Yes, good girl. I'm just so happy you were here for the whole thing, Salt. And I'll just say good night and sleep well. And I'll continue this one. The next one might be next week, but it'll probably happen on the weekend rather than midweek. Feel good about tomorrow. Don't worry about it. If anything, they should understand that they screwed you guys over. And just think about the little radio that could. if you try hard enough. Good night.